So, Joe, the Daniel mentioned this idea of a conduct chain as a central concept, an organizing concept. What led you to the concept, and what are you trying to enable to open up by use of this concept? Why does it help us get at something that can actually improve our experiences as individuals in our own right, as well as individuals in a connected or nested network?
Um, so it came about by 2021, we've come up with a set of tools. And by working with different teams and including kids as well. So we started to see that hard skill is very much ingrained in how we learn. And a lot of the times we learn these human skills the same way. So we can't, it's very hard to get them out from that mode. So we need to practice what we learn. So it's very much like learning how to ride a bike. You can't just talk about it. You need to try it on the bike. Then we were thinking about how can we get people's now we call it the highest leverage point. So that's the highest leverage point where you can practice and then realize your I don't know, the cascade effect, the ripples effect of what you do. Because if we keep talking about these human skills or even soft skills, it's too hard. So conduct is the explicit expression of these human skills. So usually when we read or hear about all these softer skills, it's mostly talk about it or give examples. It's really hard to connect to what you do. We picked the word conduct because it has a more serious feel about it. And also you do every day, but you don't really realize it because it was driven by all your human skills that you have or not have. It was driven by another set of different things. I can talk about it later. We call it the human operating system, but there are a lot of things. We use the analogy of it's like a garden and a tree, right? All these things in the soil that drive the tree to grow, but we don't see it. So it's hard to practice. So we use above the soil the things you can see, and more explicit the conduct, things you can see, what you do, the impact that you have. So that's why we choose conduct to practice.
The other part of it, and I'll come to you, Daniel, is that conduct doesn't sit in isolation because it's a conduct chain. What are we trying to get at by coupling these two ideas together?
I think in your question is, in my view, probably the most challenging part of what we're both working on. So if we ground this in a context, meaning a team collaboration. So in a project team collaboration, there are these usual suspects of a process to follow, a project plan, tasks that people need to do by their function or their discipline, outputs that they're responsible for, particular dates that they have to deliver by, and these are operational things at work, and now within the operational aspect of work, we have not just humans present anymore. We also have AI that's present as well. So there's if you take that process and then you overlay that with the tree that Joe was describing, what people are generally focused on is the stuff happening above the soil in what I just described earlier. And there's other elements to that as well, equal to the factory, the industrial way of making things. Now that we have AI, there's a human-to-human interaction that's going on in that, and there's a human-to-AI interaction that's going on in that. And so what we're doing with the toolkit is helping people realize that, hey, you know what? There are humans in the room that you are interacting with and working with, and our responsibility collectively, and this is what we call what Joe coined as conducting, where the notion of conducting in moments that matter isn't just the responsibility of the leader. It's a distributed responsibility where we're all conducting. So what does conducting mean? Conducting means not just in terms of following the process equal to your function, equal to your task, equal to your output, because frankly, depending on your process, there will be AI involved in that may or may not do a better job than you. So the implication there is when you're conducting, what it is that you're actually conducting is what's happening in the tree overlay, what's happening underneath. And what you're conducting is the conduct, interactions, and relationships between people in moments that matter, that affect the conduct chain as part of that process. So it's like we're knocking on the door of the dinner party or the factory and saying, all this stuff is already happening, what we've come up with, it's already happening. It's just what we're doing is in our discovery, we're making that move from something that is unseen or implicit to something that is connected to what you're doing. But then what you're doing is you're connecting not only, oh, Warwick has asked Dan and Joe to come up with a draft of a flyer. Okay, that's the output. But what we're also doing is collectively conducting ourselves in using the human skills in order to not only get to the output, but pairing that with the way that we're interacting together to get to an even better output or outcome together. And it's that bit that we have in our toolkit that's often missing, but in the conduct chain, we'll have a large dependency in reference to the conduct chain as to whether people feel engaged, whether people feel they're leaning in, whether people feel like they care, whether people feel like, oh, I really feel bought into the collective success of this, even though I'm only one bit in this large chain, supply chain process. It's waking that part of them up, which Joe mentioned earlier, re the human operating system, because of the current education system, has to a large degree been implicitly or explicitly shut down. So we're kind of waking that up again for people. And then people, Warwick and Joe, people love it when they actually feel like they're, oh, I'm actually part of something now that moves beyond just the transactional nature of the work. Suddenly people are feeling more invested by their conduct and their interactions and their relationships in what they're making together.
I can give you an example. Say, for example, a manager or someone keep dismissing people's question or people's ideas. So the chain could be people started to not asking questions. not raising anything going wrong, or just work on their assumptions, and then it could the chain can go on. You need a lot more time, rework things, because everyone just not saying anything, and work on their assumptions, and then people will get frustrated, and then people will start to blame each other. So the chain can just go on until you break it.
But the implication, Warwick, just to conclude, and related to what Joe said, is intention. Intention paired with respect. So even you'll notice in my language, when you're saying something or Joe's saying something, I will often at least attempt through my intention to connect it to what we're doing together, versus in this moment, just turning up and only representing myself or only talking about myself. And there are plenty of people at work that do that. They rock up, they just do their bit, they hand over their bit, and they go home. And in some instances, that's fine. But if you're coming into these, what we call these key interaction points in a process, and you're then coming in more granularly into these moments that matter, and you don't have the intention
To the collective.
the intention equal to what you're providing in reference to the collective, as backed up by Sparkle, also coined by Joe: supportive, proactive, adaptable, respectful, kind, listening, and engaged as a baseline. Then there's a good chance, like we have on the front cover of our first book, it's a very good chance that's going to lead to a generous amount of sleepwalking.